Hi everybody, this is Joshua Kirk back with you once again on YouTube, and now it's time for, this is episode 13 of Album of the Day, and you may notice that I'm in a different room this time, because I'm staying at my grandma and grandpa's house for the weekend, and I also want to tell you that it is still snowing like crazy out there, just like it was in the last video. It's like a tiny snowstorm out there. Just wanted to remind you guys that, but I don't really want to tell you where this house is from, because, nobody will let me, so I just want to remind, so those are just a few reminders right there. So, anyways, aside from all that, let's get on to the review. So, today I'm going to be talking about a band based off of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who have been around and have been making music since the early 2000s. The band is Dr. Dog, and they happen to be one of my new favorite bands because of, like, their catchy, upbeat melodies, and they're a band who can do just about anything. Like, their styles are pretty eclectic. Yeah, their styles are pretty eclectic because they do, like, rock and folk and maybe some blues sometimes. Like, they mix all these interesting sounds with all these great melodies and great harmonies. So I'm going to be reviewing their new album. It's called Be the Void. This is released on Anti Records label. I feel like this is their second album on Anti Records, following 2010's Shame Shame, after leaving, like, kind of their own record label, Park the Van. And this was released on February 7th, 2012. So, anyway, here's the cover. Really like the cover on this. Very old-fashioned. It's kind of like some old houses in there. Here's the spine. And then there's the back with all the members on it. Songs on here are Lonesome, That Old Black Hole, These Days, How Long Must I Wait, Get Away, Do the Trick, Vampire, Heavy Light, Big Girl, Over Here, Over There, Warrior Man, and Turning the Century. So now I'm going to open it up and show you the inside. Inside is basically the credits for the album, shows you where it was recorded, and songwriting credits, and mixing, and stuff like that, and the thank yous. There's the CD itself, which has sort of a yacht or a sail ship on it. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. I think it's some kind of old yacht from, like, the 90s or something. And there's this really cool sort of insert in here. Inside of here you got the lyrics for the songs. And it's actually handwritten, which is really cool, instead of printed out of a computer or something. Kind of like what they did with the Fleet Foxes' Helplessness Blues CD, or vinyl, any version you have. It kind of reminds me of that, except it was more like a poster, and not in, like, the album packaging itself. And behind it is basically nothing. Kind of reminds me of what they did on the Beatles' White Album, except there was one side with lyrics and the other side had, like, pictures of the band in the studio and all that. So, just mentioning the similarities and differences here. So, now I'm going to talk about the music on here. Now, when it came out, I looked on YouTube, just to see what people were saying about it, and I heard a lot of people really liked it. I hear reviews were pretty positive, so a few months later, I got it at Barnes & Noble, because there's like a copy that's been around probably since it came out, but nobody's ever bought it or touched it before, so I just said, okay, I'll get it. And this album is great. So Dr. Dog has definitely become one of my favorite bands thanks to this album. I like the fact that they're one of these bands who can do all kinds of genres, and I like the fact that you don't really have to venture into their older stuff to really appreciate what they do. In fact, I never heard of them until now, and I really do appreciate what they do. Usually when you buy someone's album these days, it's usually the same thing. But this album is pretty eclectic. They're kind of like Wilco, because they can do just about anything. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the songs. The first track on the album is called Lonesome, and it's got a really cool sort of old-fashioned folk rock feel to it. It kind of sounds like something maybe a jug band would be playing. Like, I'm picturing all these guys, you know, sitting around on the front porch with, like, jugs and, like, these old stringed guitars. It has kind of that vibe to it because of, like, the very soft drums, and it definitely has a bit of a country feel to it because of the acoustic slide guitar on here, which adds a nice touch to it, since this is kind of a folk song overall. Well, I thought this was a great way to get people into listening to the album, and I really dug this track. The first single off the album is a song called That Old Black Hole, which was released on in November of 2011, so I'm pretty sure that's the first song all of you have heard if you've been a die-hard Dr. Dog fan since they formed in the early 2000s. That's probably the first song all of you have heard. And it's got a really catchy feel to it, with like the memorable guitar riffs, and there's this organ in the background sort of accompanying all of that, which really fits in with the overall feel of the song. And it's really catchy, so I guess that's why they chose this to be the first single. And it's got a wacky music video for it too, with like all these footage of the members. The song is pretty catchy, so I will admit the video is kind of like that too. One of the most upbeat tracks on here, probably one of the most interesting on here, is a song called These Days, which has the guitar playing on the song is really interesting. It really kind of reminded me of like late 60s Beatles or something like that is kind of what it reminded me of. Very catchy, and the drums are pretty well done on here, like they are on most of the tracks on this album. Because you know, the drums on this album, it's a pretty catchy album, so the drums are like played very energetically and very aggressively, so it really fits in with the overall sounds of this album. I know I'm saying that a lot in this video, but this album is definitely full of that. How Long Must I Wait, kind of sounds like, the guitar riffs on here are definitely sounded different yet familiar. The song actually sounds like something that maybe Modest Mouse would have done on one of their albums. So, if Modest Mouse wouldn't have disbanded, they would have done great with the song. I never heard of the band, but I heard some people saying that it kind of had similarities to that, so I'm just saying that in the video anyway, even though I don't know a whole lot about Modest Mouse. Getaway, I guess, is a little more of like a ballady type structure on here, with a nice string section swelling into the vocal, and vocal is pretty simply done. It sounds like something that maybe could have been on like the Beatles' White Album or something like that. Another really catchy track on this album is a song called Do the Trick, which actually has a little more of an upbeat feel to it. And not to say this song is boring or anything like that. Like, I don't think there are any moments in this song that are boring at all. Just it's very kind of laid back and kind of a cool down feel to it. Like, I think it's the perfect song to listen to, like, while you're, like, working out, or it's, like, the perfect song to listen to while you're, like, jogging or something like that. It kind of has that vibe to it, and, it's really cleverly written, since, there's all these common statements where people are all like, okay, that'll do the trick. So it's cleverly written, too, and very cleverly done musically, too. Vampire's a little more serious than most of the songs on this album. That's definitely one of my absolute favorites on here. Some great guitar work on here. There's some great guitar work on here, and I think this kind of sounds like what Dr. Dog have done in the past, yet it doesn't sound like anything else they've done at the same time. Because of there's this ominous organ hanging in the background, and another part in the song that sounds different is when, like, Toby Leaman, who sang half of the album, while the other half was sang by Scott McKinney, who also wrote the album. I like how he's literally, like, growling the words on the chorus. I thought that sounded very different and very clever on there. Heavy Light is a little more experimental than most of the tracks on here. This is definitely one of the standouts for me on here. It starts out with sort of this cool sort of African bongo thing, and then, like, there's all these different effects swelling in the background, and one of my other favorite parts in the song is when all the instruments drop out except for all the effects going on and a piano. Big Girl has also has some great guitar work on it too. The album is cleverly written too. Like the song is kind of a perfect example of that. Written as kind of a song about, like, he's writing in character. I like how the band writes in character a lot, and this song is a perfect example of that. Like, he's sort of making up this character who's kind of talking to this man who's been doing this girl wrong, and that character basically wants to treat her right. And I love the guitar solo in here coming from Scott McKinney. I thought it was really interesting. Kind of reminded me of the Rolling Stones or something like that. Over Here, Over There is also pretty upbeat. This is really interesting because it, like, started out as kind of an acoustic-based song with, like, some acoustic guitar or something like that at the beginning, and then eventually builds up, turning a little more electric. There are definitely a lot of electrics going on in this album, and this song definitely shows that very well. Well, it's like, this music, in my opinion, and yes, I am gonna say this, this music is just so catchy, it ought to be illegal, because yeah, the music is literally that good and so upbeat. And Over Here, Over There, I think is definitely one of those tracks. Probably the most experimental song on the album is, I believe this is the second single off of the album, called Warrior Man. I'm pretty sure that's the second song all of you guys have heard after That Old Black Hole. Kind of gave you a clue that this album was going to be very experimental and mental, since there's all these keyboards or swelling in the background, and the lyrics have kind of a medieval theme going on behind them. So this is definitely one of the most interesting songs on here. Disagree with me all you want on this song. I know some people may say this song is all over the place, or I know some people may say this is a experimental mess, but it's just your opinion. I really like this song a lot, so if you disagree with me, that's okay with me. The last track on here is a song called Turning the Century, and I thought this was the perfect way to close the album, because it's got sort of a laid-back feel, although this time it does have an acoustic guitar on there. It sounds like some of the more experimental stuff the Beatles have done on, like, Sgt. Pepper, especially with the use of the sitar on here. It's like an Indian stringed instrument. There's just something about the sitar on this song that just adds a nice touch to it, and just sort of, I like how it dates back to sort of a simpler time. In fact, this song is kind of a more bluesy feel, I guess. And it's well written too. It's sort of a song about how people are just turning the century with what they've been doing throughout their life. Like, Dr. Dog have definitely been singing their whole life since they started out, so they're definitely sort of turning the century, so you can tell that this song is definitely right for them. Overall, I don't have any complaints about this album. There isn't one weak spot on here, literally not one. So my favorite track on here, that's kind of tough. Maybe see. I'm gonna go with That Old Black Hole, because it's just a cool, really catchy song. Some of my other favorites on here are These Days, Vampire, Heavy Light, Lonesome, Do the Trick, Over Here, Over There, and Warrior Man are probably my favorites on here. I'm going to give this album a 9 out of 10, because, the album is just that good. There's definitely a little something for everyone in here. I think everyone will definitely find something that they like on here, because this is just a very creative album. That's very creative album, and I think there's a little something for everyone on here, so highly recommend you check it out, especially if you're a Dr. Dog fan and haven't checked out this album. If you're new to this album, go check it out, because it is just really good. Alright, this is going to wrap it up for episode 13 of Album of the Day. Stay tuned for episode 14, but that's actually not going to be the next video, because my next video is going to be a random update. I just want to do this, so I've been postponing the updates, so that's going to be my next video, so stay tuned for my next video, won't you?